right here. We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women. And we're probably not going to be cheering so much for some of them.
We are living in extraordinary times. Times that may fundamentally change how we see ourselves in the universe. The veil between the known and the unknown is thinning. The signs are everywhere. Shifting energies, unexplained phenomena, forces beyond our comprehension gently guiding us toward a greater awareness. Some call it a cosmic awakening, others a realignment of power on Earth. But whatever it is, it did not go unnoticed by those in the highest circles of influence. During his first term as President of the United States, Donald Trump made history by releasing the so-called Pentagon archives, classified documents revealing previously unseen footage of unidentified aerial phenomena. Trump has repeatedly demonstrated his willingness to unveil hidden truths, taking bold steps to ensure the public's right to know what world leaders have long kept in the shadows. The most renowned release was the FLIR 1 video, a declassified military recording from 2004, captured by Commander David Fravor and Lieutenant Commander Chad Underwood of the USS Nimitz Carrier Strike Group, showcasing a tic-tac-shaped object exhibiting extraordinary flight characteristics. And then there was another.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Oh, big dude. That's not our LNS though, is it?
It's not. And another. The Go Fast case. And now we are on the brink of yet another revelation. With Trump's return to office for a second term, the floodgates have opened once more. He has already declassified new documents regarding the assassinations of President Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr. But what about UFOs? What else remains hidden?
Will you help push the Pentagon to release more footage, which a lot of people claim is available?
Oh, yeah, sure, I'll do that. I would do that. I'd love to do that. I have to do that.
Yes, we are indeed living in extraordinary times. But while awaiting Trump's next move, our team has uncovered something even bigger. Bigger than the FLIR 1 video, bigger than Roswell, bigger than anything you've ever heard before. We are chasing the holy grail of anomalies. Take a deep breath. You will be surprised.
All right, let's get started.
CSCE. CSCE.
In the year 1974, the world stood on edge. The Vietnam War raged on. An energy crisis threatened global stability. And in the United States, the most powerful nation on earth, the president himself was forced to resign. They told us it was about a political scandal, about Watergate. But history has a way of bearing the truth beneath simple explanations. What they didn't tell us was that during this same time, something else was happening, something unexplained. 1974 was one of the most active years of unidentified aerial phenomena in recorded history. There was the Berwyn Mountains incident in Wales. Witnesses reported lights in the sky, unexplained seismic activity. Something crashed, but no official explanation was ever given. And far in the north, Lapland, Finland, another anomaly. Late winter, deep snow, a freezing silence. 3 lights appeared over a fell, pulsing in perfect rhythm, like distant drums echoing across the dark. A local Air Force weather observer reported the lights as well. Steady, synchronized, and unlike any aircraft he had ever seen. No aircraft reported, no military exercises, just 3 measured beats of light, and then nothing. Then there was New York. August 23rd, just 2 weeks after Nixon's resignation, John Lennon, one of the most iconic rock musicians in the world ever, a Beatle, saw something.
Up there, I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river. It wasn't a helicopter, it wasn't a balloon, and it was so near.
They look what sort of round, white,
just
luminescent, and silent.
Silent, and it looked dark, like black or grey in the middle, and had white lights, just looked like light bulbs, you know? Just going off, on, off, on, off, on, blink, 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 round the bottom, and on top was a red light.
And before that, February 1974, Berkeley, California. One of the most legendary science fiction writers of all time, Philip K. Dick, experienced something that went beyond even his own over-the-top imagination. A young girl came to his door, delivering pain medication from a local pharmacy for his aching tooth. She wore a pendant, a fish symbol of the early Christians. When the light hit it, something happened. Philip K. Dick saw a pink beam, a radiant intelligence, pierce into his mind. It was like a secret code that opened the gates of a dam. He collapsed onto his bed and saw strange visions, like a flood of abstract paintings flying through his brain. Philosophical ideas, engineering blueprints, concepts beyond reason. The visions kept coming over the following months. He was given information no one could possibly know, like that his son Christopher had a life-threatening condition, an inguinal hernia, one that required immediate surgery. They rushed to the hospital and the doctors confirmed the diagnosis. The knowledge he received saved the boy's life. In another vision, he was told that the President of the United States would fall. In his novels, Dick would later refer to him as Ferris F. Fremont, a stand-in for Richard Nixon, the sitting president at the time. And yes, Nixon resigned just 6 months after Dick began receiving transmissions from what he called the pink light, or zebra. The light also told him that he had once lived another life in another empire, ancient Rome, or perhaps, as he speculated, another soul, a far more intelligent one, had entered his mind. Somehow time itself had folded. The universes overlapped. As proof, Dick suddenly began speaking fluent Koine Greek, the language of the earliest Christians. The light spoke of a hidden tyranny, a false reality, a prison made of deception, what he called the Black Iron Prison. And from within it came a message, repeated like a divine mantra. The empire never ended. With his trademark humor, Dick often joked about his experience and the possibility of mental illness. But the pink light incident affected him deeply and changed his entire view of reality. He spent the rest of his life trying to make sense of it through conversations, letters to his friends and fans, novels, and a vast, semi-autobiographical work called VALIS, where he explored the experience through multiple versions of himself. But at night, he wrote something else, something bigger, the exegesis, a sprawling 8,000-page attempt to decode the vision, like a modern-day Sybil deciphering a divine signal. What exactly was it that Phil experienced? The pink light, zebra, VALIS, or whatever you want to call it? Was it an ancient satellite in the sky transmitting living information? Was the Soviet Union experimenting with subliminal mind control? Or had he simply gone mad?
Faster than a laser bullet, lighter than 1,000 sun.
I have the honor and pleasure to bid you most heartily welcome to Finland.
And yet, 1974 was just the beginning of the flood. In 1975, the United States reported 288 separate incidents involving unidentified aerial phenomena. Europe, 144 cases more. And in South America, long associated with high levels of activity, 369 additional sightings were documented. As for the rest of the world, including the Soviet Union, official numbers remain unknown. But based on declassified air traffic data and intercepted communications, independent researchers estimate at least 741 additional incidents occurred elsewhere. If there was ever a moment when hidden forces reshaped our world, it was 1975. It was an invasion. This global wave raised serious concerns among world leaders. A major international summit was hastily organized under the official name, the Conference on Security and Cooperation in Europe. Officially, the goal was simple: to reduce tensions, improve relations, and open dialogue between East and West.
The meeting is called to order. In accordance with the agreed program for the third stage, we shall now proceed to the signing of the final act.
That all sounds noble, of course, but why did the world's most powerful leaders really come together? Was it just Cold War diplomacy? What did they discuss behind closed doors? And why, decades later, did the United States declassify documents that referenced this very meeting over and over again? What our team uncovered was clear. The CSCE meeting and the rise in unidentified aerial phenomena were no coincidence. And soon you'll see that everything we've presented so far is deeply connected. President Trump's push to declassify Pentagon archives, Nixon's collapse, John Lennon case, the global sightings, the zebra visions of Philip K. Dick, and his oracle-like exegesis, and finally, the Helsinki Summit of 1975. What was agreed upon? And with whom? Why did UFO sightings suddenly drop after the meeting? Coincidence? I don't think so. Just keep watching. You'll see. This is the real story of the CSCE, or should we call it the Classified Symposium on Cosmic Entities. In the previous chapters, it's been quite the firework as we've explored the background of our unbelievable true story. But now we turn inward to our own investigation, to the real material we've uncovered. In 1984, a Finnish journalist named Pekka Maltonen went missing. He worked for a highly respected magazine called Alibi, and it's known he was investigating an extraordinary case just before his disappearance. But no one knew what he was after, and no trace of him was ever found. But in July 2023, his nephew, Pekka Maltonen, visited his family's old summer cottage and found something. Something that once belonged to his long-missing uncle.
Hello, my name is Pekka Maltonen. I am a city engineer from Imatra, an eastern town in Finland. 2 years ago, I visited our family's summer cottage, which once belonged to my grandma and grandpa. It was a warm summer evening, and I went up to the attic to look for my Märklin train set that used to belong to my father.
He didn't know it yet, but this box would change everything.
I found a cardboard box, and yes, my train set was there. But there was also something else. A brown envelope. Inside of it was 2 old cassette tapes from the 80s, maybe even earlier. There were markings on them. One said, Etyk 1975. The other, Jussi 22nd, 1984. And there read in big capitals, Jumalauta.
Could this tape shed light on what was really behind CSCE?
Now, Etyk is the Finnish word for CSCE, Conference on Security and Cooperation in Europe. And, Jumalauta, it means something like, God damn it. I took the tapes home, back to Imatra. But since I didn't have a cassette player, I kinda forgot about them. They got lost under a pile of advertising leaflets. Ha ha.
Such is the fate of many crucial historical artifacts.
But later, when I was cleaning the house, because a woman was coming over and I wanted to impress her, I found the tapes again. At first, I thought the name on the cassette, Jussi 26 of June, meant it was some kind of musiikkomplikation for the Midsummer Festival. In Finland, we often call Midsummer just Jussi, from the Finnish word Juhannus. I figured it probably belonged to my older sister. She used to make tapes like that. But I realized it was not her handwriting. It was my uncle.
Pekka realized that his uncle had vanished on June 23rd, 1984. A day after the date marked on the tape, about 40 years ago.
So then, I looked again, and it hit me. It was not about midsummer. It was about my uncle, Jussi Maltonen. Jussi, my uncle, was dear to me. I really liked him a lot. He used to take me to the movies, to see ET, Star Wars, things like that. So, I went to recycling center, and I found an old cassette recorder.
That's where it began. Pekka loaded the CSCE tape into the player and rewound it to the beginning of side A. He pressed play with a loud mechanical click. At first, nothing but soft tape hiss, and from outside through the open balcony door, the distant wail of a siren, blending with bird song and the low hum of summer traffic. Then, a voice. Rough, tired, unmistakable. It was his uncle.
Siltä se tuntuu. Mä oon aika helkkari ihmeessäni. Se oli siltä Martikaisen ruukulta uuden keissi. Piti mennä haistelemaan juttua. Reperistä löytyi joku taksikuski. Istumassa seinää vasten. Silmät seiso päässä. Tuijottu, kun se olisi just nähnyt jotain. Mitä ei olisi mitään. Keskellä vatsaa reikä. Pyöreä. Tarkka. Tai joku kirurgi, mutta veressään se makas. Lompakko oli tallessa, ei mitään viety. Edes koiraukolta levisi, mutta nyt menee Oulu. Se kaivasi. Sen kuskin pirssi löytyi hylättynä klunikasta. Ja se kävi vielä, ja mittarikin ruksutti. Löytyi vasta aamuyöstä, kun postiljoni alkoi ihmettelemään ja vilkasi, mitä mittari näyttää. Kytet väitti, että ruumiilma haisi metallilta. Mutta mitä oli käynyt? Kytet ei osanneet sanoa. Kello oli 2 keskiöä. Tarkalleen. Siellä haisi ollota vielä, kun mäkin kävis. En tiedä. Ja jotain omituista vihreitä smekumaa siinä, missä slow. Kutitti kummasti sormen päätä.
Jumalauta. 2 minutes of the tape was missing. But then the same voice continued.
Mä tajusin, että se oli se sama muutvisti, joka nappasi mut kyytiinsä valtatiasemalla, kun tuli. Joka hurisi hulluja siitä, kun joku sen kyydittömän ministerille tuli kännissä hypettänyt Nixon avaruuden olennoista. Ja joku helvetti etikko oli mukaan ollut pelkkä kulissialki kalausien välissä. Ja kuinka ne oli pakettia tuli jossain koiraa. Uskanut. Pyysin se ajamaan Essolle ja jututtiin kaveria ja rauhoitin sitä, koska se oli niin hullua puhetta. Ja haluaisin sentään tietää, kenestä ministeristä se oikein puhuu. Ja pari nuorempaa kansanedustajakin oli kyydissä. Tinassa totta kai kuulemma. Oli siinä naurussa pitelemistä. Ihme juttuja. Pilsneriäkin se pirssikuski rupesi sitten kittaamaan. Karjalla ei kelvannut, kun siitä kuulemma tulee persekipeä. Äijä jätti taksinsa lopulta Esson pihaan. Kännissä kuin peikko. Mun piti nyt ottaa toinen pirssi perkele, että pääsen kotiin. No ei minä minnekään kotiin.
After hearing this part, Pekka felt odd. He paused the tape. He needed a moment. So he went to the fridge and grabbed a cold beer from a glass bottle. He opened the cap, took a sip, and pressed play again.
Yhdistyneenä politiikassa. Joku kuukaava tai mies mikä vatsassa. Joku sanoi, että ehkä liukastuu. Miten pitussa liukastutaan valsallaan? Jos saa jotain nähdä. Ja se Svenko. Ja se ministeri.
While he was listening the tape, Pekka felt like electric waves would flow through him. It was emotional to hear his long-lost uncle's voice. But what was he talking about? It sounded so crazy. Next, Pekka found another marking from 11th of June.
Perkele, se on rikki.
There were once again a series of issues with the tape. The next segment, several minutes of the taxi driver speaking, was almost entirely lost. What remained was a swirl of stretched magnetic ribbon, warped voices, high-pitched whining, and the kind of tonal disintegration that suggests the tape itself was beginning to fall apart. But Pekka, ever patient, wound forward, past the noise, past the chaos, and eventually found the next marked section. This one actually worked.
Jäätä tulen muutamalle myös sopivia. No, mutta joo. Kävi eilen sitten yhdessä Rööperin-kaupassa. Tapasin sen pussin voidaan kaveleita. Mitäksen kasvissus heinäsirkka liikkuu. Mun kyllä on tuttu. Kovin sitä kutsutaan. Mutta kaikki tietää, että se on valinko. Silti se yrittää olla mukana niissä Rööperin piillä. Varkaita, trokaareita, syteilöörejä, salakuljetteja ja sellaista. Ja tuo on järkyttävää.
But what about the taxi driver? What exactly did his companion say about him?
Mutta ei mikään hyllä ja käy sählärikö. Tuuleja. Mut sit kun se toi pari notanteria alle, niin aina se alkoi pöttää Egyptistä ja ulkoavaruuden olennoista ja nipsumista. Sama paska, mitä se on mulle silloin Essolla vuosia sitten. Ja nyt se vittu brittivaltio kuolee ja mä vaan miettii, oliko se sittenkin oikeassa. Tiesikö se muka oikeesti jotain sellaista, että se piti suolata? Kenen valpallisuulosta.
Well, that was certainly enlightening. What did Pekka hear next?
Alkaa vielä mua. Pitää löytää sen muija. Se kuuluu joku ilmeni. Joku varppihuolella. Pitää sekin varppihuolesta ikinä talkon takaa.
Pekka kept listening. It was like a diary. Some of it didn't seem to have much to do with the CSCE case. But then, he was back on track. The track no one wanted him on.
Tänään se Marttikainen käski mun keskeyttää kaivolle, ettei tulisi mitään juttua mukaan. Mä yritin inttää, että tässä on jotain suurta. Mun enää sanoo niin. Se oli tiukkana lähes uhkalla. Jumalauta, mä vitut mitään lopeta. Että jutu vaikka suun kuvolle. Perkele haistakaa Marttikaiselle pitkä.
Pekka listened to the rest of the tape, again and again, but most of it was badly damaged. The audio was warbled, warped, even reversed in places, and it smelled bad. Strange beeping sounds overlapped parts of the recording, like an old modem or a primitive computer. But there were words, half words. But near the end of the tape, there was a voice, a woman's voice. Just a fleeting moment, but to Pekka, it felt like it was calling him. Like a siren out of Greek mythology, he was transfixed. There was something familiar in the tone, something thrilling. Could it be? Yes. Now it hit him like Vulcan's hammer. Jussi had mentioned it earlier on the tape. Irmeli, a name that echoed from Pekka's teenage years. A woman who had, without a doubt, left her mark on a boy in the middle of puberty.
Irmeli, a name to remember. The first pair of, tits, I have ever saw outside my family. That's a peaked in 13-year-old boy. She was there, the day before my uncle Jussi disappeared, at our family's summer cottage. They went to the sauna together. Irmeli swam naked. I was standing at the pier. She smiled at me while I was watching. I tried not to.
Oh, Pekka, shame on you.
That early in the morning they left. They had an argument, adult stuff, you know. I didn't understand. Irmeli was crying. Jussi was shouting. Then Irmeli was shouting too. Jussi said he'll come back after taking Irmeli to the train station. But he never came. That was typical for Jussi, my parents said. And since there were no mobile phones back then, and no landline at the cottage either, He couldn't let us know. Not that he probably would have, even if he could.
Did Pekka?
And yes, I saw something else too. Lower.
At least now Pekka knew he had to act. This was about his uncle, but it was about himself too. A mystery, a memory, a puzzle to solve. And he knew he couldn't do it alone. He had to ask for some help.
I'll sit with the train, the one that takes me far away. I'll sit with the train, heading to another town today.
CSCE, CSCE,
CSCE.
Stay cool. CSCE.